Right, today we're replacing a rear pinion seal on a rear diff. So first step is we've marked the tail shaft just so we put it back in the same place so we don't get vibration problems if the drivers or the owner's used to how it drives, the little vibrations. If we change it sometimes and there's a different type of noise or vibration, the owner will point that out. So what I do is I always mark it before I take it off. And you can see the oil's been dripping here and right up on that rubber there. It's been spraying around for a little while on the exhaust as well. Anyway, we're going to just take off these bolts and get access to the pinion nut. You can see the nut in there, the pinion nut. Now what we have to do is we need to mark that precisely where it is, because in the diff you have what's called a collapsible spacer, and that adjusts the preload on the diff. If we put it in too loose, you can actually probably nip it up a tiny little bit past it, but what happens once that collapsible spacer, it's just like a sleeve with a little bump on it like this, and it creates like a pressure on the bearings, so the bearings are under load all the time, they're not just rattling around. So if you go past that, the little bump in it that's got a little notch in it that creates the tension, once you go past a certain spot, it'll collapse, and then you have to replace the whole thing. So ideally, when you mark it, you put it back to the exact same spot. You may just go a little smidgen past that. A lot of the times these nuts are crimped somewhere, so you just have a look on there just to make sure it's not crimped. If it is, you just need to sort of knock it off with a chisel, or just so it doesn't ruin the thread as you're undoing it. You just wire brush and clean as much as we can. I've wire brushed around the outside and a little bit in there. It's a bit hard to get into, but we'll just blow it all out and clean it before we pull it apart. Mark the nut with a bit of liquid paper, and we need this special tool here. It's probably seen better days, but what we need to do is bolt that to this, and then you leave, when you put the breaker bar, and they are pretty tight, so you'll need a breaker bar. You can lean it up against this here to get the thing loosened. Quite often we'll let this rest up against the hoist or something, just so you can get a good leverage on it. Anyway, I'll put that on and you'll see what I mean when I get it all together. Okay, this shows a little bit better. I've bolted this up onto the flange there, and it's resting up against the hoist, so you can see when I lever this, the big breaker bar, that will be holding it there, so I can get a good leverage. The car will move back a little bit as you're undoing it because it's on the diff. So anyway, I'll go ahead and do that. Make sure these bolts are tight too, just so it doesn't slip off or damage anything or hurt yourself. And there she goes. She's loosened up. So I'll just take that off. I'll have to just prepare a little tray underneath it in case we get a little bit of diff oil coming out. Now usually these come off pretty easily. They are on splines in there. This one's not budging, so I'm going to have to get the puller and just put it on there just so I can pull it off evenly. Otherwise, tapping this may bend it out of shape or do some damage to it. There we go, we've got the puller on it. We're just going to do the bolt up and it'll just pull the flange out without damaging. I should have probably got the bearing puller on it. These are a little bit awkward to put on sometimes, especially when you're working sideways. A lot easier to mount up when you're working vertically instead of horizontally. There we can see it's winding off slowly. See the gap, and that's where the seal is under there. It's nearly off. There you can see the flange where the seal runs on, and that's the seal just there. Seals are metal clad, which means the outside of it's metal and the inside's rubber. This one's a rubber one, so it comes out easily with a pry bar, something like this. You just lever it out, it'll just pop out quite easily. If it's a metal one, you might have to hit it with a chisel along the edge, but make sure you don't damage the outside of the where it sits, otherwise it'll leak there. Anyway, we'll pop that out, we'll just go grab a new one, pop it back in, we can put it back together. Now you can see on the flange there's a little groove there where the seal's been running, so I'm just going to polish it up on the lathe before we put it back. You can see where the lips on the seal, that's better, where the two grooves are, where the lips are. One's for the dust seal and the other one's for the oil. But if possible, instead of pushing it into that same spot, try and either push it in a little bit deeper, or you can't really go a little bit less because there's not much room there. It'll be hitting on this flange here. But if you can knock it in a little bit deeper, it'll sit on this new spot and seal a lot better. We're just going to try and push it in just so it's completely flush with that, or even a little bit deeper, just so it sits on a new spot. Old piston that we've machined out where we can just knock it in a little bit deeper. If you're doing it with a hammer, you can only go flush, so that's just gone in probably 1/16 of an inch deeper than it normally stays. Now it's just a matter of putting it back where it was, making sure that the mark is back exactly where it is, and just maybe going a smidgen over. It's pretty tight on the spline, so I'm going to need the breaker bar to just nip it up again and put that other tool back on there. You can see the marks, but there are about 2 threads in there, so I've got to go in probably another 2 turns. And that's probably getting pretty close there now. See where that mark has to be down to there. Now we've got that tool resting on the hoist here, and I've just nipped it up, if you can just see that, just a tiny little bit past where it was initially, and that's all you need. And that job's done. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to put the tail shaft on and top it up again with oil. Thank you for watching again.